I'm defying all the odds. No matter what's against me now. No matter what. I once lost all my hope, but now it's finally found. Defying all the odds, I found the strength inside me, and no matter what, ain't nothing gonna defeat me. I've been at the bottom, I lost hope, I gave up, came back fighting, and that's when your boy came up. Everywhere that I look, I see another lost soul, and if you listen to my story, maybe it will help you on. No matter how long you've been on the road that you were on, you don't have to become a statistic or a sad song. I told all these haters I'm going straight to the top. They don't want to see me win, they want to see me just drop. And that's pretty funny, the devil's the same way. I paused for a minute, but now it's time that I play. Understand this disease, it doesn't discriminate. Have your right or die, brother, lie straight to your face. And I understand, so I don't hold it against you. I have demons, I know that you do too. I'm defying all the odds. No matter what's against me now. No matter what. I once lost all my hope, but now it's finally found. We are only human, sometimes make the wrong choice. That is why I'm on this track, cause I'm gonna be the voice. You don't have to do it on your own and walk this road alone. So when I am going through it, I learn to pick up the phone. The devil's talking in your ear and tells you don't do it. No need to worry, cause he's gonna help you through it. Then you're lying in the bed with a needle in your arm, cause you didn't think that one time would lead to any harm. Now your family is left with that, you won't wake up again. When your heartbeat flat lies, that is when he wins. So stop giving him the power to control you. Stick your middle finger up and tell him that you won't use. That's the story of most of your people that's out there, lost in the dark, not knowing that people care. And speaking from experience, I've been down that road, been through all the pain, so I already know. Yo, I spent 2.5 years in the dark, bro. So I know what it is to be in the dark. From the prescription medications to doctors and bullshit like that. Don't think there ain't no help out there. There's plenty of people out there that'll help you get through this. So just pick up the phone, man. I'm defying all the odds. No matter what's against me now. No matter what. I once lost all my hope, but now it's finally found.
Hi, everybody. That was my dear friend Creasy with Defying All the Odds. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Survivor Series. The Survivor Series is an original product of No More Heroin, and we showcase inspirational testimonies of people who have overcome seemingly insurmountable odds to live a life of purpose and destiny in recovery. And tonight we have an amazing guest. Before I introduce my guests, I'd like to send my condolences out to all the families that were affected by the bombings in Sri Lanka, with all the religious buildings and the gatherings and over 200 deaths. The world is getting very, very cold out there. So if you would, just please send up prayers and positive vibes to all the survivors of the attacks and their families. Just a horrible situation. I'd like to welcome my guest, Mr. Matt Ganem, the poet. Matt and I have been friends for over 3 years now. I met Mr. Ganem in Lansing, Michigan, on the steps of the Capitol. I was there representing another organization, which I won't name, but being able to watch, I'd seen you online, and I was listening to your poetry, and I said, dude, this guy's spitting fire. And then when after standing there watching you and videotaping you, I said, man, I gotta talk to this guy,
Yeah.
And you right from the beginning, you were very humble, you were kind, generous, and since that point, you've been on the Survivor Series before a couple times. each time has been a major success. You tell people your story, black and white, raw, and that's what we need. That's what you are an amazing role model for other men in recovery. And today you are celebrating 13 years of sobriety, bro. How about that?
Yeah, man. 13 years.
Yeah. How about that?
It blows me away to even think about it. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't picture 13 years ago when I was sitting in the Hamilton house that I would ever make it to this spot in life. Like, it's been a very, very beautiful journey. It's had its like extreme highs, extreme lows. It's had everything in between. It's, you know what I mean? Like, it's been an incredible, incredible journey. And I've been blessed, like, going back to thinking of that event in Michigan, I'm like a fish out of water. I don't know anybody out there. Never mind, like, my poetry is kind of based out of Mass, and they got me, performing in a completely different state around people that I have no idea about. And most of the time when people are like, oh, you're doing poetry? Yeah, roses are red, violets are blue. I'm a drug addict. Like, so, and then when you actually like hear it, it's like, it hits you in a different way. So, but that was a cool event, and we sat down right after and just chopped it up, and have just stayed connected, since that day that we met. And I like this setup than I did. We stereo of myself just talking.
Yes, this is much better for interaction.
Exactly. You can go back and forth, ask some questions. You know what I mean? Like, it's just one thing. It's an honor. Like, I'm beyond honored, and I'm beyond grateful that one I've had, the experience in recovery. I'm honored that, like, I get to speak for people that can't talk, and not just like my friends that passed away, but like not everybody can raise their hand. I'm a recovering heroin addict. Let me tell you my story, because there's consequences when you share like your past, like job. There's risk of losing your job, the stigma behind it. And like one of the things that I've tried to do is just like, I don't care like what your opinion is of me. Call me a junkie, call me whatever it is that you call me. I'm going to share like my story, and I'm going to show you like what I'm able to do, how I'm able to succeed, because I wasn't like, I'm a have not. I wasn't supposed to have anything. I was supposed to be a statistic. I was supposed to be back in jail, back in a detox, back in a program. It's to 13 years is going against the odds. It's bucking the trends. And the biggest thing that I try to do is do it. Like, if I can get clean, like, I truly believe that anybody, and just trying to put a positive spin on recovery. Like, I live a great life. I get to enjoy fun things. Like we were talking earlier about, like, even today's been a rough day, right? It's been a rough day for whatever the circumstances were. And like, I still ended up sitting at my father's house, who I absolutely like, just, I destroyed my father. He used to sit by the phone, having a ring, like, is this going to be the phone call my son dies? Is this going to be the phone call that he killed somebody or he's in jail again? And like, I sat down on his couch, and like, we shared a great Easter dinner with my sister and her baby, her boyfriend. I mean, like, just having family that like I put through hell when I was using. And like, it's just a beautiful thing that I get to experience like these moments with my family, and make memories and be present. Because for a long time I was that empty seat. Yeah,
the
man.
promises come true, bro. So take us for a walk down memory lane. What was it like growing up for you?
For me, growing up, I always struggled to fit. I always wanted to be a part of. I grew up in a broken home, like and even before my father left us, like, he worked a lot. The group of friends that I had, like, they were everything to me, and whatever they did, I was doing. So, like, when we were younger, we were playing basketball. Like, when my friends were playing basketball every day. When we were playing stickball and baseball, like, I was playing stickball and baseball and football. Once we started doing drugs, I was doing drugs with them. Like, I felt like if I wasn't doing what everybody else was doing, that they were gonna make fun of me. I wasn't gonna be a part of that group. And it started for me. The first thing I ever did was smoke a cigarette. I was 12 years old. My buddy stole a pack from his mother. And he handed a cigarette out one by one. And we all sat on the corner coughing up a lung thinking we were cool kids. And that right there kind of followed me through, every step of the progression of this disease. It went from I started smoking, then we were at a house party. We stole, a couple of beers and we were drinking by the side of a house. Then it was weed. My freshman year, I got kicked out of 2 schools. I was doing ecstasy, mushrooms, acid. And my third high school, when I was 16 years old, I was introduced to this drug called Oxycontin. And for the longest time, I did these things to escape, my depression, to feel like I could talk to people. Like Oxycontin made me feel like I was Superman. Like I instantly, the first time I did it, I fell in love with it. And from there, in the early stages, it was easier to get than alcohol because no drug dealer is gonna ID you. You know what I mean? And back then, we didn't realize when I started doing them that you're gonna end up an IV homeless heroin addict. The way it was broken down to me was my friends were like, "Hey, this is like taking a few perks." That's how it was broken down. Like, oh, it's gonna make you feel good. Little did I know it was synthetic heroin in a pill.
That's right.
And it gradually went from Friday, Saturday to Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday to let's split one on Monday to who do I got to lie, cheat, and steal from on Tuesday, Wednesday to make this happen. And all of a sudden, slowly but surely, I was doing it every single day of the week. And I ended up getting kicked out of my third high school because I was a classy kid growing up. I was, and even going back to being the new kid. When you're the new kid at every school, the easiest way for me to fit in with people is find the people that did drugs and hey, I got some, or I know where you can get, these ecstasy pills for cheap, these Oxycontin for cheap. And my senior year, I ended up getting kicked out of my third high school after I had some promise in some sports. I was a varsity basketball player. I had college scholarships my junior year for baseball, and I threw that all away because I'd rather get high, you know what I mean, than play sports. And unfortunately, I moved out of Massachusetts into New Hampshire. And I swear to God, the entire state of New Hampshire didn't know what an Oxycontin was. And I met this girl that just happened to be from Massachusetts too. And she just happened to do Oxycontin too. Yep. And we ended up clicking. So every few days we were driving down to Massachusetts to go get 80s because nobody in the state knew what they were. And that's how I ended up finishing out high school. I was strung out on these 80s. I was a monkey that sold bananas, even though back then I used to think I was some cool kid drug dealer when the reality was I did all of my profits.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, and unfortunately in the neighborhood before I moved up to New Hampshire, I looked up to all these older kids that had cars, they had a hot girlfriend, they sold drugs, they made money. And I looked up to that as that's what I want to be. When I get older, I want to do whatever it is that they did to get to that point. Because as much as the drugs were addicted to me, the lifestyle, the chaos, the trying to hustle, sure. that was ingrained in me from a young age. Whether it was selling weed, whether it was selling ecstasy pills, whatever it was, I just followed suit with what these older dudes in the neighborhood did. So then I started seeing an opportunity to make money off oxys because when you have a screaming OC habit, it's a very expensive habit to have. They're very not cheap. Expensive. They were never really cheap. Even if they were still expensive. And I ended up somehow, some way, by the skin of my teeth, I graduated high school. The day after I graduated high school in New Hampshire, I was back in Massachusetts with this dream that I was gonna get high every day and sell drugs and live that type of lifestyle. And I had an apartment. I was the first kid, out of our group of friends that had an apartment. So everybody was coming over my place. We were all getting high. I had this strainer on my living room table, and my living room table literally had white powder stained to it. And people would just come, they grab a couple pills, they go get high, and they would leave. And eventually, I ended up getting raided by the OC task force. Not a good look. And It was pretty embarrassing when you're talking to your 90-year-old Italian landlord on why the cops kicked down the door. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't really a good look. And, you know, I ended up in detox, and that was like the first time. I was 18 years old in detox. And, I was kind of put there by my probation officer at the time because I obviously had I had a drug problem. So he, like, right from the beginning, I was fortunate that, like, I had people in my corner trying to push me to do the right thing, even though I couldn't see it.
Yep.
My first probation officer, I grew up with his son and his two nephews. So I literally got every single possible break you could get. Because he always pictured me as a 12-year-old that was playing Little League with his son, playing basketball with his son. He never, you know, he tried to give me the benefit of the doubt until I wore out that welcome, which is like a running theme in my story. So I ended up getting kicked out of this apartment. And unfortunately, I don't have anywhere to go, so I'm couch hopping, which I was doing at a young age. My mother ended up kicking me out when I was 16 because, again, I was a very classy kid. I was couch hopping my junior year in high school. Ended up moving up to New Hampshire to live on my father's couch. But here I am. I got evicted from the apartment. I'm living with my best friend, and at 19 years old, on September 1st in 2004, he hung himself. And at that time, I had like a little bit of clean time. Like I was trying to stay away from it. Going back to like that first time in detox, I was trying to get off oxys. Everybody was on dope. So I looked at everybody as I'm better than you. My problem just got out of hand. I'll never be that IV heroin addict. I'll never do this. I'll never do that. Holier than thou, better than the next person. I had this like horrendous attitude towards people. And, you know, I ended up back in detox a couple times, but I ended up at my buddy James's house, and I was sleeping on his couch the night he hung himself, and I had to take him down with his mother.
Wow.
And, you know, when you deal with something like that, it's something that's like permanently burned into my brain.
Very
Like,
traumatic.
I'll never forget
Very
the
traumatic.
image. I'll never forget how cold, like, his body felt. Like his mother's screams haunted me. Like I used to wake up from night terrors thinking he was still alive. So right from him committing suicide, like my solution to that problem was getting high. Like that was the solution to everything. When I was dealing with anxiety in high school, like getting high was that was my solution to it. If I had to go fight somebody, I'm not the toughest kid in the world, nor will I ever claim to be. But if I'm getting ready for a fight, I need to be high because then I'll have the aggression. I'll have that fearlessness that the drugs would cover up that scared little boy that was hiding inside. And so my buddy passed away. And I went on like a suicide mission after that. I just didn't care about living. Like I would bounce from place to place.
How old were you at that time?
I was 19.
19.
I was 19. And
it's a rough way to get started in life, huh?
Yeah, like and he wasn't so 9 months before that we lost a good friend of mine, Danny Nunes, to suicide. And all in all, in that area, there was 5 suicides in 18 months, and everybody was caught up in this, caught up on Oxycontin, one way or another. Whether I was friends with them or they were a little bit older, every one of these suicides, everybody had some sort of drug issue going on with it.
Wow.
And so from there, the crime started getting worse because, I needed to do whatever I had to do to get high. And at that point, I was still better than thinking that you're a heroin addict. I would rather rob somebody walking on the street. I'd rather rob a corner store. I'd rather do whatever it took to get oxys over doing dope. And, unfortunately, when you commit crimes, when you get high, when you do drugs, when you have people looking for you, for when you beat people, you wear out your welcome everywhere you go when people start knocking on doors looking for you. So I would last a little while here and there, and then I get moved on to the next spot. So all of a sudden, Oxycontin gets pulled off the market, right? In our area, pharmacies were like a big deal. Like people used to rob pharmacies left and right. All of a sudden, pharmacies stopped even accepting Oxycontin. There were these big signs on CVS and Walgreens saying, it's 24-hour notice for an Oxycontin prescription. We do not carry them in this pharmacy because of how many pharmacies were getting robbed. Then on
Wow.
top of it, they switched. They pulled them off the market and switched to the Opanas or whatever the whatever ones you had to do like a process to sniff,
Yes.
crush, break, whatever it was. Right? I refused to do that. I'm curled up, dope sick. I was 19. It was a few months after my best friend hung himself, and I got this guy that came in, and he offered me a bag of heroin. And at that time, I was curled up, sick, dope sick, sucking my own thumb, hot and cold sweats. My body ached, and like he could have told me it was sugar that I could have eaten and to feel better, and I would have believed him, and I would have just done it. Like the appeal, like heroin has this stigma, right? When you're a kid, you think of it as the homeless guy, the guy sitting with a Burger King cup, begging for change, like until like you just have this stigma towards it. And I always thought I was better than because I did Oxys. It was made by a pharmaceutical company. It was pure, whatever justification I tried to use. When the reality was, it was heroin and a pill. So now here I am, dope sick. There's no Oxys around. No dealer has it. I can't call anybody. I'm dying, losing my mind. And here's somebody that comes in and presents a bag of heroin. And I tried it. And once I realized I didn't have to spend $400, $500 a day to get high off of Oxys, and I could do it off a 40 bag and I could sniff it, I never went back to Oxys after that. I was off and running with dope. So, in the process of doing dope, I'm back in. I'm getting arrested for possessions. I'm in and out of detox because like I don't want to shoot heroin. Like I'm sniffing heroin, but I'm still better than the guy that shoots heroin. And you know, I end up going back to like being that monkey that sold bananas. I'm middleman for a dude, and that was my way to get high. Like I sold dope to other people, and I did all the profits. And at this time, like I'm still couch hopping. I don't have any place of resident. It was rarely like somebody would let me live with them for a few months, and then I get kicked out and find the next place. And you can kind of do that when you're young. The older I got, the less opportunities I had, the more people knew I was strung out and I was getting high. And once I went to the needle and they catch me shooting up in their bathroom or leaving needles, laying around places that had kids, like, I wasn't welcomed anywhere at the end.
So let me ask you this: during this time when you were using, running the street, bouncing from place to place, can you look back on some very close calls, near misses is what I would call them, where you can see that God had his hand on your life?
Yeah. So I got stabbed in the shoulder, and
That's what I wanted.
Yeah. So me being the wannabe drug dealer selling dope, I was pretty easy to spot, and I was probably 135 pounds soaking wet. So it wasn't like I was this big bad guy back then. I had this fat dude that didn't like that I sold heroin, and I don't really blame the guy either. I was at this place, Good Times. It was like an arcade pool hall. I was playing pool with a buddy of mine, and this 40-year-old dude comes up, asks me my name, and I go, I don't know who you're talking about, because he looked like a cop. Because back then, just about everybody was harassing me, trying to catch me, because I ended up beating my Class B distribution charge with the Oxycontin case. And here I am selling dope. People know I sell dope, and they can't catch me. So I thought this dude was a cop. There was a movie theater across this place. Now, both places now have been torn down because the city, Somerville, is getting gentrified, where they have condos and new shopping centers. But back in the day, Good Times was the spot to hang out. And then, I was walking across the street past the movie theater that was on the way back to the projects where I was staying at. And this dude comes up from behind me with a fish cutting knife, stabs me in my shoulder. I got 30 stitches. I got a tattoo of an angel, but that's how wide the scar is. So he stabs me in the shoulder. My shoulder splits wide. I turn around, swing with my left hand like a little girl because I'm a righty. And the guy ended up hitting me in the forehead with the bottom of the knife. I go to the ground. He tells me don't sell dope in this city. And I spit blood on him, and he swings a knife in my neck. And I swear to God, in that moment, I felt it go across my neck. I felt it, and from like I was sitting on my ass. He put me on my ass or whatever, and from like a sit up position, falling back to the ground was the longest half second of my life. Because for that time, like I swear to God, he cut my throat, and I remember I was laying on the ground and I just gasped for breath, and I reached around my neck and he missed, and I looked up and he was taking off. It was like, you know, thank fucking God. Because at that point, I'm covered in blood. My arm is just dripping blood. I got a cut on my forehead. I'm gushing blood down my face. Like I thought, I thought it was over. And then that was back when I was getting high, it was before social media, right? So I ended up in the hospital getting stitches, and the story went from I got stabbed once to I got stabbed 15 times, and I'm on my deathbed. And I get out of the ER, and I got a bunch of friends that are sitting in the waiting room thinking I was dead. Mm. But that just goes to, show you how long ago some of this shit was. And, right. As close as that happened, like you think that would have stopped me. And unfortunately, it didn't. I was right back out there doing what I did to maintain like the fact that I wanted to get high. Right. And
by any means necessary.
Exactly. And I think it was 3 months later, I ended up getting arrested for Class A distribution, which ended up being a huge benefit for me. Like that was one of the points that saved my life. Like if I don't get arrested, if I'm not facing time, I'm not sure that I would have went through the 6-month program that I went through with the same type of attitude if I didn't have something hanging over my head. But fast forward, just the crimes that you commit, selling drugs, like selling death to kids is what it was. Like I was a scumbag when I was getting high, and unfortunately, it wasn't about making money. It was about what can I do to not be sick for that day. And I ended up getting arrested selling dope. And right after that, I'm dead dope sick. My habit was built up to, that the economics of everything, where I was doing oxys and it jumped to $400. Well, now my heroin habit's $400. And I was that holier than thou, still sniffing it. And after I got arrested selling dope, that same kid that introduced me to a bag of dope, he introduced me to the needle. We sat in the bathroom. I held my arm up, wasn't even looking, and he stuck it in my vein. And I was off and running, the same way that first time I sniffed dope, that first time I did oxys, I was off and running shooting. And I was shooting everything that I possibly could. If I couldn't get dope, I was shooting crack. Like anything that I could fit in that needle and put in my arm, like that was
I can relate to that.
And a chase in itself. So now here I am, right? I've been in 20, 30 different detoxes. I've made feeble attempts to go to programs because at this point I'm stipulated because of I have a Class A case that I'm on trial for. I violate probation. I go to this 30-day forced treatment, they say, that is Bridgewater in Massachusetts. And Bridgewater has 30-foot fences, razor wire, and you're in prison uniforms. But it's a detox. I was such a good drug addict that I did 30 days in there. I get out of Bridgewater State detox or whatever it was called, Massac. I go across the street from the courthouse in Somerville to Kmart, and I get arrested for shooting dope in the bathroom, and I get sent up to county. Wow. Like that's how good of a drug addict I was when I was getting high at that time. Wow. I lasted an hour of freedom. They put an article in the paper about me of drug dealer Matt Ganem arrested shooting heroin. I get out of Newman and Bill Ricky, and everybody's making fun of me for it. Because again, I'm a great drug addict. Like I get high very successful. Let me tell you.
It doesn't sound like success at all.
No, not even a little bit. And then on top of it, so at this point in time, just to go into like the chaos and lovely history that I have, I'm in jail and I'm expecting a child. And I'm telling everybody I gotta get my act together. I gotta get clean. I got this kid on the way. So the kid's born the day before I get out of jail. I get out of jail. I go right to the hospital. I take pictures in the hospital. I got this little baby in my arms, and I wasn't necessarily with the girl, so I end up taking a DNA test, and I wasn't the father. You know how you celebrate when you're not the father? father,
You get
like
high.
you stick a needle in your arm and you keep getting high.
Yes.
Like that was my way to enjoy the freedom that I did not have a child. So just to add like a little lovely chaotic story in, but so I continue to get high, continue trying to go to these. I end up in the Salvation Army. I last like 6 days and I take off. I end up in a halfway house that I left 15 minutes after I got there out of pure fear. Because when you remove the drugs from me, that hard, tough guy, that criminal that'll stick you up, that'll rob you, whatever the case is, like that's out the window once you take the drugs out of my system. I am completely this insecure, depressed, fearful little kid that never matured. Sure. And but again, I take off and what do I do when I get into those manic states of like fear filled? I go get high. And so I stay getting high. At this point, I'm living in South Boston. I'm sleeping head to toe on a futon with my best friend and his mother. And I end up giving his mother heroin as my way to pay rent. She had just got out of jail. She did 5 years in Framingham. And me and him give his mother dope every single day, and she lets us live there. Well, my buddy was in drug court. He gets stipulated to go to this program called the Hamilton House. And every day he's asking me, like, Matt, you need to get in here. You need to get in here. And it's this great program, which it was a shithole in like one of the worst neighborhoods in Boston. But every day he begged me to come to this place. And I like, at this point, I didn't want to live. I tried suicide. I tried hanging it up, and it didn't work. Like, I was terrible at getting high. I was terrible at trying to kill myself. I had a gun in my mouth. I couldn't pull the trigger. I tried to shoot dope where, like, I did absolutely every ounce that I had and hoped I would die peacefully in my sleep. And just about everybody knew I was on the suicide mission at the end of my run, that I just didn't care about living anymore. And, so he's putting pressure on me, and he's the last person that will talk to me, because at this point, my family won't pick up the phone for me. My mother, my father have completely disconnected. I have no friends, because every friend that I did have, I borrowed $40, $50 from and never paid back. I literally had the drug dealer that would pick up the phone. You know what I mean? Like, the drug dealer was the only dude, and I thought he was my best friend. It's pretty pathetic. And so I'm laying on the couch. I had no hustle in me for a day or two. And unfortunately, I'm curled up, dope sick. My buddy's mother's shooting up in front of me, and she goes, "You got a fucking problem. You need to go and get help." And then she proceeded to shoot the one thing that would fix what was ailing me into her arm and started nodding out. And I remember I went into the bathroom and I looked in the mirror, and I was just this skeleton. Like, I was just I was a complete stranger. And I couldn't tell you, because like,
you have an issue when another drug addict is telling you you got a problem, pal.
And this is the crazy thing, because if I'm getting high, I'm not telling you to get clean. I want you to get high with me so we can run together. Like, nobody, you know what I mean? So this is another moment that we talk about, like, a higher power. For me, like, my higher power is my best friend that killed himself. Like, I felt like he moved the knife away from my throat. I felt like he spoke through my buddy's mother, saying, like, you got a problem, you need to go and get help. Like, I just can't picture her saying that to me. You know what I mean? While we get high together, while I provide her heroin so she can get high too. Like, you don't tell somebody to go get help. You rarely do that. So now at this point, I don't shower. I don't brush my teeth. Like, I wear the same clothes every day. I have nothing to my name. And, I had this feeling that, like, for the first time in a long time, I wanted to live more than I wanted to die. Like, I wanted to get clean. Like, I didn't want to live like this. I didn't want to be homeless. I didn't want to sleep in Boston Common again. I didn't want to couch hop, begging a friend to let me stay there for the night. And then, like, my disease, my addiction would have no boundaries on people, and I would steal from them. Like, I hated being a liar. I hated being a cheat. I hated being this manipulative little shit that would do anything and step over anybody for getting high. Like, getting high was everything to me. It's what I wanted to wake up to. It's what I wanted to go to sleep.
Using against your will at all, no matter what, at all costs.
Mm-hmm. So most of the time when you call detoxes out here, they're like, all right, call back in an hour. There's no beds right now. So you got to repeatedly call hour after hour after hour. And after about 3 phone calls, that was my best effort usually. Like, oh, they got no bed. I tried. Let me go get high today. And I ended up calling this place and they had a bed for me. And I ended up walking from South Boston to Austin, it felt like it took forever. And I end up walking to this detox. I end up in this detox. I almost overdose in the emergency room as I'm crawling through the hospital, just completely wrecked. And I end up in detox. They start making phone calls to get me placed into a public program, a 6-month halfway house, and I end up getting this interview at the Hamilton House. So I ended up making it there. It was 7 days after I ended up getting out of detox. I bounced between a friend's house and staying at the Pine Street Inn, which is a shelter in Boston. And I show up. Now, I didn't know that I didn't have a bed and I was only there for an interview. So the guy that ran the house is this big 6'5" guy, did 10 years in prison, storming in like, what effing motherfucker brought their things? This isn't a hotel. Ba, 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 ba. Right? So in my mind, I'm already checked out. Like, this guy's I'm not going to get a bed. Never mind, I have warrants from court because I've been dodging all these stipulations and leaving programs. And all I do is go back to detox, call him from detox, and be like, oh, I'm going into this program just trying to buy time. So I'm like, this is like my last shot, or I'm just going to end up getting locked up. Mm-hmm. And so he ends up bringing these other people in for an interview, sends them back to the holding that they were in. Then he brings me in. I was there at 7:30, brings me in at about 12. And at 12 o'clock, he looks over some of my records that were sent over, and he's like, where are you going to go when you leave here? And I go, oh, I'm going to go down to Fields Corner. I'm going to go get a bag of dope. Like, I'm going to turn myself in if I don't have a bed. Like, this is like the last stop before I go away for a while. And he ended up sitting me at the conference table that they do groups at and never told me to leave. So I didn't leave. I just sat there. And they fed me, and I sat through one of their groups, and at 7:30 at night, this guy brings a pillow and a blanket out, and he goes, you clearly want this. Like, I'm going to give you a shot. And not only did he give me a shot, he in turn went to court with me to be like, you know, this kid needs this opportunity to get clean. Every crime I ever committed was drug related. Everything that surrounded my life was the chaos of drug addiction, selling drugs, committing crimes so I can get high. And he stood tall in court, and he was a respected guy in the court system. And they ended up giving me, they kept pushing off my date. They kept pushing off this, you know, what they were trying to hit me with. They stipulated me to the program. They ended up giving me 5 years probation, 5 years suspended sentence, lost my license for 5 years. I had to complete a 6-month halfway house, a year in a sober house, 3.5 years of consistent drug testing 3 times a week. Like, they made me jump through hoops of fire. And, you know, it ended up saving my life. And my PO that I grew up with his kids, when I got locked up, he had tossed me to the side. He said, I can't do it. I'm done with this kid. I've given him every chance, and he just like spits in my face. So I ended up with this guy, Damon Banks, that's now the head of probation in Cambridge. And that guy, like, he looked out for me. I was trying to get clean, and he supported that. And that was back at a time where, like, they wanted to crucify me like I was like Tony Montana, the dope game.
Sure.
When, like, I didn't have anything. I sold drugs to get high, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. You know? So I end up in this 6-month halfway house. So since I was about 12 years old, everything had revolved around drugs. We're going to the beach on Saturdays. Like, we had a 5-hour break that we got to leave every Saturday. So me and 2 of these older guys and my buddy Eddie, who was in the house, would go to the beach and like throw the football around, hit the water, grab food. Like, we had fun, sober, with no drugs, talking, you know, nonsense between each other. These 2 guys really took us under their wings. And I took it to heart that Tommy, who ended up passing away from an overdose, like, he pulled me. He was a 6'5" monster of a man. And he was like an older brother to me in that house, because he was just like, dude, you're going to wake up one day. You're going to be 45 years old, 12 years in prison. Somebody's still going to tell you when you got to come home, when you can go to sleep. Like, if you don't get this right now, you're going to be me, and you don't want to be me. And at that time, like, I took that to heart. You know what I mean? Like, I hung around with him, who was trying to do the right thing, compared to like some of the guys in the houses that weren't. And also, one of the biggest things that house gave me is I rediscovered one of the best forms of therapy that has carried me to where I'm at today. And I wrote poetry as a kid. I can't write a sentence. I don't know what a noun is or a verb. I don't know any of that nonsense. But I've always been able to write poetry. And I wrote it when I was a kid, when my parents were going through a breakup. Like, I'm saying, like 5th, 6th grade, I was writing poems. And when I was shooting dope, I was useless. I couldn't do anything. I might beg you for a cigarette or some change because I need to take the train home or something, but I was not writing. So here I'm in this halfway house with a bunch of guys, and that scared, insecure child that's hidden inside a young man was screaming. And for me, the easiest way to put everything out was to write it down. That was my easiest way to like communicate what I was going through, or dealing with like the shame of what I did to my family, the shame I put on my name, the shame of like screwing over friends and like being that scumbag you can't trust. And it just started pouring out.
That was your saving grace right there. You can identify there. Yeah.
Was everything. And
being able to, we were speaking on this before the show, the ability to write your feelings on paper helps connect you to your feelings and emotions that you've been separated from for so long in addiction. And it helps you deal with the guilt, shame, or remorse. And
because a piece of paper will never judge you. Yeah,
that's right.
Like a piece of paper will never judge you. So I could write about like some of the most scumbag things that I did without fear of judgment coming back. And in turn,
you got it out of you.
I write every day. I'm writing 2-3 pieces a day. Like, I'm going to like, hey, I'm hitting 90 days to like, man, this guy just brushed shoulders on the train and I'm pissed off and I want to fight him. Like, just the highs and lows of early recovery is like documented in these notebooks I still have. And from there, I ended up, throughout the halfway house, I was writing. My first job was roofing for $7 an hour that barely paid the rent and for a couple packs of cigarettes when I first got in the halfway house. I started working, moved into the sober house. Things just started progressively getting better. I started hanging out with people that were clean. That we weren't lying. We weren't trying to hustle something. There wasn't a scam we were going to do. We weren't trying to steal, GPSs out of cars back before every car came with a GPS. And the poetry thing was one of the biggest consistencies in my life. So then I started sharing it with people one-on-one. Like, hey, I want you to check this piece out. What do you think? And everybody started pushing me to like put it out there. And, the poetry is really where like everything in my life just started like accelerating. And I mean, I say accelerating, it's been like 8 years since I first like put out in the public something. And I started with videos on YouTube. Then I started posting poems on Facebook, and they were like, a lot of it was recovery related. And people just started responding in a way that like, whether it was a parent of an addict that they got to see things in a different light. You know what I mean? Addicts that it was broken down in a different way than they had ever heard it before. And not trying to like, I mean, it just is what it is. The poetry ended up being a huge, huge platform for me. And, I put out videos. I ended up with a book deal in 2010. And part of that book deal was that I had to speak in public, which I had never done. Everything I had done was posting some videos on YouTube, a couple of poems on Facebook. I never had to be in front of people. And the first time I ever performed in front of somebody, we were at an open mic, and I read through a piece of paper into a microphone in front of a crowd of 4 because I was terrified. And what's crazy is we were talking before that in September at Recovery Fest, I was on stage in front of 14,000 people.
14,000 people
14,000
just digging,
people.
connecting.
it's years and years and years in between that first open mic to where I was at. And so going back to the open mic, I have this book deal, and just to show like my life has not been just one steady incline of success. I have this book deal, and I'm telling everybody I'm putting this book of poetry out. I do my first radio interview at this place. It was a radio show in Florida. And the guy ends up getting put on to CNN, and they ask him for intro music, and he goes, "Nah, I want a poem from this Boston poet, Matt Ganem." So then they send me paperwork. I sign it. I record this poem in a studio, send it down to CNN. They took over the rights. So at this point, I'm doing these open mics with a larger crowd, and I'm telling everybody, "Oh, I got this book deal. I'm going to be on CNN." Neither one of that happened. The book deal, they kept telling me, "Oh, waiting for the right editor." The CNN thing just never ended up making it on air. And when I was getting high, I smoked crack with this chick in the Mystic Projects that said she did a duet with Celine Dion. As was smoking crack in a project hallway, right?
That sounds about right. That sounds about right.
I'm like, "You are out of your mind, lady." And in turn, like, I was shooting dope with a kid that swore to God he was signed with Eminem. We're in an abandoned shooting heroin, and you are not signed to Eminem. Like, I'm sorry. But these are the stories that they were telling. So now fast forward to me in recovery with a few years in recovery doing poetry, and I'm telling these people these things that never ended up happening. I feel like I'm telling the same lies.
Absolutely.
So I'm really defeated at this point, right? And like I you know, the poetry had started taking off. I was up for best poet in Boston. I was the first performer for the Raw Showcase, and I was up for Performer of the Year with them. I had all these things that were happening, and this book deal fell through, and I was ready to quit. Because at this time, I have a child now. Like, I had a son that was born that I'm trying to provide for. You know, I'm trying to make this poetry thing happen, and I'm just like defeated because it wasn't getting anywhere. It just didn't feel like it was gonna push any forward. And my best friend Dougie got out of jail like 2010.
Mm-hmm.
Now he went away. Me and him used to run around. We used to hold up little corner stores. We used to stick them up, and he ended up getting caught, and he took 5 years overturning on me. And he ended up getting out of jail. He started doing better, and he sat down with me and he goes, "I believe you're destined for something more. I'm not going to give up on you. Like, whatever you need, we'll put this book out." And he ended up giving me money to self-publish The Shadow of an Addict. And what's crazy is he ended up getting murdered in 2015. And he was at every event. He was at every open mic. He was front and center when I won awards. He believed in me at times that I didn't believe in myself. And unfortunately, these last 4 years, he hasn't been able. I know he's there. Like, I believe he's got a front row seat from heaven,
I see you
watching down. But like, that's like one of the saddest things is I don't get to ride this out with him, because we were homeless together. Like,
yes,
we shared each other's clothes growing up. Like, it was me, him, and his little brother. His little brother died of an overdose in 2011, and he was murdered in 2015. And it was like us three growing up. And but that moment right there where he pushed me to put this book out, self-publish this book. You know, if I quit there, I'd still be doing construction. I'd still be scraping by, trying to provide for my kids. You know what I mean? Like, all the things I was able to do in the future just wouldn't have happened. You know what I mean? And he believed in me. He believed that I was destined for something better than what I was doing, and he wouldn't let me quit. And I ended up putting the book out. I sold like 4,000 copies out of my car. I'm going around traveling to speak. I'm getting these opportunities to like perform at the State House for Recovery Day. I've done it now, I think, 8 or 9 years in a row. Recovery bike rallies. You know, I'm starting to get out there a little bit more. And, you know, in turn, I ended up getting this opportunity in 2014 to work with a good friend of mine, and it was working in treatment. And he pulled me out of construction, and I'll forever be grateful for it, because I used to hate, like, for my poetry, I'm going to share with you guys a little bit later, but like, I used to walk around job sites doing installations, talking to myself, reciting the poems so I can memorize them. And the foreman would think I was a crackhead because here's this kid who don't talk to anybody as I'm just reciting poem after poem after poem, trying to memorize it for like that night's event. You know what I mean? But I ended up getting to work in the field, and I got to just travel around sharing like my form of a commitment, which is poetry, and just trying to make a difference, trying to make a positive impact. We were working in the private aspect of it, but the majority of my work was done with the public. And when you get to like help people, you know, get in and out of places, going to public detoxes, sharing. A couple places I went to, New Chapters in New Bedford and New Bedford TSS, which is a hold-it. We used to do an open mic poetry thing in the program once a month, where I would travel down. It's like an hour and a half, and I would share some poetry, and the clients would get up and read the poems that they wrote. And it was like the things I was able to do once I started, you know, being fully entrenched in the recovery community was like absolutely amazing. So I worked with this kid for about a year, and I ended up getting an opportunity handed to me where I got to do what I'm doing now and what I've been able to do. And it was switching to another program, and I got the opportunity to build a program in Massachusetts, which meant like the absolute world to me because I'm an uneducated, convicted felon that was never supposed to make it in anything. And here I am. At this point, I'm traveling around. I'm performing poetry from New York to like Florida to Virginia, Michigan, Minnesota, Michigan where we met. I'm speaking at colleges, high schools, middle schools. You know, at this point, I have two kids. I have two kids that have never seen me get high. You know, I get to like I have a purpose, and like I lacked a purpose for a long time. Like yeah, sports filled the purpose for a short amount of time, but I ended up losing it. Like the love for it was gone once I started doing drugs. Right here, I am in recovery, years in recovery, and for a while I resented being called a recovery poet because I can write. Like I write about love. I can write about what's going on in the world or relationship issues. Like, and I used to resent, oh, Matt Ganem, the recovery poet. I'd be like, I'm a poet. I can write. And but I ended up embracing that.
Don't put me in that box.
Don't box me into a
Don't box me in.
No. And
that's where your gift is.
But that's what it was. I go to these places, I share these poetry, these little poetry pieces, and people related to it on just like a different level. And
so raw and real.
And that was something that like I built this connection with people, and then like helping people, and not just for private, like the public. People know I go above and beyond, whether it's helping them get into a halfway house, sober house, detox, CSS, whatever it is in Massachusetts. I try not to drop the ball on anybody, because I remember what it was like picking up that phone and having nobody to answer that call. Like I don't ever forget how alone and isolated I felt, and it felt like nobody out there cared whatsoever. And so I get this opportunity. I still get to travel. I get to do all this stuff. That's where we met out in Michigan. And, you know, I worked with them for about a year. And I got the green light to build a program in Massachusetts.
What?
Yeah. Woo! With no education, with no knowledge of it, with very little help. And I ended up putting these pieces together. And fortunately, with the absolutely, like, I have the most incredible team. Like, the people in my life are absolutely amazing. You know, we opened our doors in 2016, summer of 2016, July. And I built it off of everything that every program I went to, they treated me like I was a piece of shit. Everything that they did wrong, you know, we're trying to do it the opposite of some of the things that I did in there, you know. And we try to love people up, and I put people in a position to succeed. Like I'm very fortunate we've been successful with it, but like my team is absolutely incredible. I think 95% of people are in recovery. A lot of people couldn't get jobs elsewhere because of their history. Because again, when we do drugs, we commit crimes. Our quarries don't always look the best. Now I remember I hired this guy who's amazing. He's a real good guy, solid recovery, breaks down the big book, amazing. genuinely cares and gives a fuck. And I get this phone call when we're doing his paperwork, and they're like, "Oh, this guy got this charge on it," and it's not like it was a gun charge from when he was using.
Sure.
I'm like, they're like, "Oh, we can't hire him." I go, "Well, do you know your executive director is a convicted felon for selling heroin? Like, I'll co-sign him. We're gonna hire him. We're gonna take him on."
Our past is our greatest asset.
That's it, and that's what our program is based off
Yes.
of. Because like everybody in our everybody that works for me went through public programs. They have like the experience of like going through, you know, shithole places or jail or living in the streets, and they also have the compassion that they buy into people and they want to, you know, they want to see people succeed. Like that's the only goal that we have. Like we're not here for a cure. We're not here to try to do, you know, sell you some false hope. Like we're trying to put you in a position to succeed, and then you put your best effort in, and you'll see the results. Because ultimately, like my recovery, your recovery, anybody that's listening out there, like we can have guidance and advice, but ultimately, like we have to put the footwork in. Nobody's carrying me to get to this point in life. Like you have to put the effort in, and you get what you put in. When I'm playing basketball every day, I'm pretty good at basketball. When I'm not practicing, when I'm not putting in the work, I'm terrible. Same thing with recovery. If I'm not putting in what I need to do day in and day out, like I'm not going to get the return on it.
That's
and yeah, so ultimately, through the book, through performing, through the poetry, through the different opportunities, I built a treatment center. I own a couple of recovery homes. I had a pizza shop for a year. I bought my own house, and I'm not trying to talk into materialistic materialistic things. I'm just saying, like I was a homeless, broken heroin addict.
Quite a contrast.
Now I own my own home.
Yes.
I was a single father for my son for the first, I don't know, 7 years of his life. I have full custody of my little man, and I have a beautiful daughter that it's a little complicated situation. But she's the most beautiful girl in the world. She steals my heart, even though she's a little diva and gonna be a little middle linebacker, right? But the fact is, I get to be in their lives. I get to be present. You know what I mean? Like I'm not worried about going to cop dope or today being at my father's house at Easter. I'm not trying to cop dope so I can get high, but not too high so I can sit down at dinner. Or am I even going to be allowed into the house when I show up because they're scared I'm going to steal something? Like I walked into the house and it was all hugs and all love. You know what I mean? Like when my son and my daughter woke up this morning to get their Easter baskets, they jumped in my bed and hugged me, screaming, "Oh, it's Easter! It's Easter!" You know, like I'm just like beyond grateful to have certain things in my life right now, like my friends. You know, going back to some of the staff, like that girl in New Hampshire, right? Jenna Bedreau, right? I shouldn't have thrown a government out, but we got high in high school. Her first arrest, we got arrested together shooting dope, and she almost died a little over 3 years ago. She had endocarditis, was in a coma. Priest was coming in to read her last rites, and she fought through it. Came back, regained custody of her son, started working for me. She climbed the ranks to be the director of operations, right? From a have-not, from somebody that wasn't supposed to be anything, that was a dope addict. She'll never be anything but you know, somebody in a program, somebody in a jail cell. You know what I mean? Like that's the beautiful thing, seeing people progress, seeing people experience growth and find success in whatever language that they're looking at in whatever field and career. But yeah, I mean, I'm really grateful. I know I ramble, but
no, you killed it. You killed it. You painted the picture perfect.
Having my kids in my life, like having the friends that I can call up no matter what, and they'll be there, like without question. My brother Chris Orlandino, he just got his GED. He got his license a year ago when like he was an addict his entire life and never thought he could even get his license back. Never thought he could get his GED, and he just passed his GED. Like that's the goal, is when you see like the people that you surround yourself with turning their lives around in recovery and then succeeding. You know what I mean? Like I have friends that are business owners that were that hopeless heroin addict. I got friends that make music. Justin Clancy is one of like the most incredible artists. I'm not calling him a rapper, singer, anything. Like he's just a talented artist. You know, like recovery is such a beautiful thing that like I wish like I could get how I feel each and every day and just give it to like everybody that I come across is struggling. You know what I mean? Like that's the ultimate goal, is trying to inspire somebody to have that spark that they can
Absolutely.
turn their life around and that they can accomplish anything. You know what I mean? Like the opportunities in life when you get clean, you put the drugs down and you put your focus into positive things, like your possibilities are literally endless.
Endless, endless.
Mm-hmm.
And the blessings will manifest more blessings, and just the
Yeah.
relationships grow, breed more positive relationships. And
Oh,
it's
rebuilding the fractured relationships and like being there for my sister, my son. Like my son knows about drugs. I'm already talking to him about it. Like it's just
you're putting the
it's just
work in.
crazy. It's crazy to be here this long looking back at where I was to where I'm at right now. Like I couldn't even put into words like the experience and the reflection of where I've been, what I've had to do to get here, and just the simple fact of I'm sitting here with you, where across the country, right?
That's
We got
right.
all these beautiful people they're listening in, they're commenting, um, and we're all getting this, right? We're getting
We're
connected.
connected. That's right. That's right.
And that's one of the biggest things I lacked growing up. I felt so isolated, and drugs isolated me from everybody I loved. It burned every bridge around me
Absolutely.
until I was left on an island. And now like recovery is all about the interconnected parts and creating these connections that people can thrive through.
The opposite of addiction is connection.
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
know,
So
one thing that really hit my heart was when you were on stage in Pawtucket.
yep.
You were able to give your sister a shout out
Yeah.
and show some love to her. Would you want to
Well,
share that?
so going back to the open mic where there was 4 people, here I am on stage at Recovery Fest in Rhode Island in front of 14,000 people, which is like absolutely, it's next to my kids being born. It's probably the greatest moment of my life. Just standing on stage with that many people, and it was Jenna who I was just talking about. It was her recovery day. It was a clean day, and I didn't tell her anything. And what better opportunity to share it with somebody who's like family to me that I go
That's
back.
right.
What is it? 16 years. 16 years. We go back, and whether we always somehow stayed in touch, we lost track when she was getting high while I was clean, regrouped, and we've been like riding till the wheels fall off since. I didn't have a better opportunity to like just share how proud I was of her, because like she was counted out, she wasn't supposed to make it, and here she was celebrating 3 years in recovery. Like, so I made everybody get extremely loud and gave her a huge shout out, just because that's just love. You know what I mean? Like we're very loyal people up here, and like
That's
my
right.
friends are family. You know what I mean? Like she's family to me, and that was
We're
that
all
was my way
family.
to yeah, absolutely, and just to show appreciation and like put somebody out there. Like that was a cool moment I got to share. I've been blessed with a platform that I get to do some cool things, and like I've done like people do a moment of silence. I try to get everybody to get loud so everyone can hear them in heaven, which is another thing I did at Recovery Fest. I got everybody to just get insanely loud so they could hear it up in heaven. For all my
That's
friends
right.
that passed away, I had my friends in the background, some of the closest people, and a couple people that like what two kids that were sons of very close people to me, as a way to like just remember them. In my book, there's a whole page of people's names that passed away, and you're going back. When I wrote it was 2011.
You had some of your friends on the screen behind you, didn't you?
Yeah, that was at Recovery Fest.
Dougie.
But Dougie. I've done events where I got them to. I scream out Dougie, and the crowd screams out Fresh. And
Dougie Fresh.
yeah,
That's
just
dope.
just trying to I just want people to remember them. You know what I mean? Like they affected me in a positive way, and I really feel like every one of my friends that passed away rides with me day in and day out, and that they're with me in everything. So I never want them to be forgotten. I want their legacy, their memory to live in everything that I do. And it's cool. Like that event was amazing. I got to be on stage in front of quite a few people, and I got this miracle poem that is a call and response, and having the entire crowd scream out miracle. When you got 14,000 people, like I couldn't stop smiling, and I don't like smiling on stage. Like I try to be pretty serious.
The
And
whole crowd
I
was
was
hanging
cheesing.
on every word coming out of
Oh
your
man,
mouth.
it was beautiful, and like they would chant my like it. You don't realize, right? I'm not trying to like. That event had a lot of people from around a large area, and the amount of people that came up to me and like whether I got them a detox bed or they read my poetry, like I was like on cloud nine through that entire event. Like it was so surreal meeting people that like they call me. I end up getting them somewhere, and they got a year. They got 6 months in clean time. They're in a halfway house. They're doing the damn thing.
Yes.
And like getting to meet people that like I might not have been able to. And they came down and they're like, yo, we're here to see you. I'm like, you traveled all this way when all these other people are performing, you just want to hit me. I'm like, that, that was just, it was a beautiful feeling, the entire event. And then to cap it off, like being on stage, hearing the crowd roar, 14,000 people. I remember telling people I was a poet and they laughed at me. Right? My neighborhood that I grew up in, when I told people I was a poet, they laughed at me and they told me that I wasn't going to be anything. Oh, you're doing another open mic. Ha, ha, ha. 14,000 people. I'm pretty sure none of them people are laughing at me anymore.
Repeating everything you asked them to. Everything. Everything. So powerful. So powerful.
Dude, it was incredible. And there was a lot of people there. A lot of beautiful people there. And what was dope, right? Take my selfish, self-centered BS out of this. Like, that was a recovery event with 14,000 people. And did you hear about any insane fights? Did you hear about any craziness that happened?
No, not at all.
14,000 people in recovery coming together for a festival of speakers, poets, musicians, stories, and like
fellowship.
I don't know.
Fellowship.
The fellowship. It might have been the best recovery event. It's the best recovery event that I've ever
I didn't even smell weed one time.
No, not once.
Not even once. A lot of vape
14,000 people in recovery coming together for a beautiful event and no chaos happening.
To celebrate recovery and the life that we have today. To get that hope and inspiration from guys like you, bro. I want to hear you spit some of your poetry.
Yeah, I got you. Impatiently waiting until the smoke clears. Tightrope walking between insanity and serenity. I wonder if I can find hope here before the rope tears and the last thread of my misery. I can't escape the fog. The hands of fate grab hold of me, choking me, exposing the broken me of what I was supposed to be. A wrong turn at the fork in the road. Now I can't turn back. Will the door of opportunity close? Should I make my own path? I knew I shouldn't have sold that. A trip away from this foolish paradise to a place where angels with clipped wings make guitar strings singing to the afterlife. For my soul, the devil wants to know what's the asking price. My fall from grace was quicker than slipping on black ice. Still searching for solid ground. Spiraling and I'm falling down. Is it really my calling now? Does it still make my heart pound? Standing on stage, staring out at the crowd. But it's nothing but empty seats. Do I do it for them or do I do it for me? Do I do it for inner peace or do I do it to be free? Just breathe. Because I want to take your breath away. Well, I welcome y'all to my palace of shame and introduce y'all to my marriage to pain. Carrying the shadow that I battled to change. And the war was ugly. I rose from the ashes of a junkie. Used to load up in the bathrooms of donkeys. Now I'm getting high at the crowds in front of me. Like the applause that fix only fit for a druggie, so I take a hit at the people screaming they love me. And for that one shining moment, these dark skies become sunny. I forget about the nights I was alone, roaming the streets with no place to go, no place to call home, raising a broken child on my own, and you wonder why I got stoned. Chemicals numbing my sharp senses. How many nights was it park benches? A story that's heart-wrenching where I stopped venting. The ghosts of my past coming back for vengeance. Syringes saying use me and you won't end up back behind barbed wire fences, but I'm against this. I'm for you to remember me. Even if my physical presence is deceased, the essence of my being will never leave. Inside these words, please cherish me, for my soul to be set free is more than just a memory.
That's so good. So good.
Yeah. I'm gonna do another one, the broken system real quick.
I just shared that video on our page before we did this. I love that.
So in 2014, they shut this bridge down in Massachusetts, which cut off 660 substance abuse beds, whether it was detox, residential, holding, halfway house, pre-release, family shelters, juvenile programs, women's programs. They cut the bridge down, and all of a sudden, all the overdoses in Massachusetts started climbing at like an insane rate, right? None of the beds got replaced. Mix that with fentanyl, and people have just been dying at like a crazy clip in Massachusetts. And I wrote this out of pure frustration with the system in Massachusetts. And it really frustrates me when I have somebody that wants help. I get them into a detox, and 5 days later they cycle right back onto the streets. And in 2015, they gave me the award for Recovery Advocate of the Year. And it's pretty cool because most of the time it's given to like some suit and tie politician that doesn't really give a shit about us. So to get that type of award, it was cool. And it was something that I was grateful for. And I'm pretty sure that it stemmed from this poem called The Broken System. Governor Charlie Baker was doing these listening parties. He was doing these listening parties. So he has this big one in the State House in Mass. And there's like 700 people there. And I kind of did this poem staring him down, and everybody went ape shit in the crowd after, and it ended up making on some like news clips and some radio clips, and you know, fair to say the governor of Massachusetts kind of hates me. You know, when you take a picture with somebody and you're like, oh, I hate this dude. Well, unfortunately, hey Charlie, come over here, let's get a picture together, buddy. And he's like, this motherfucker. You know, I felt like I had to, you know, to just put it out there. So, you know, it's called The Broken System. When I got high, it was to escape the pain of hurting. Explaining addiction to a normal person is like a woman with no kids explaining the pain of birthing. Let me break it down to you. These 4 to 5 day spin washes aren't working. We need to scrap the Massachusetts model of treatment and come up with a better version, because these suits and ties would rather close their curtains, ignoring the state's overdose rate is continuously surging. These politicians must be living in a fairy tale. At times trying to get into a detox like a dog chasing its own tail. The system is set up for us to fail to the point. Sometimes it's easy to go detox in jail. Call the programs up to here. We got no beds. Then when you do get into detox, they load you up with enough meds until the entire unit looks like a night of the living dead. A 4 to 5 day escape from the day to day. A safe place to stay. But there's no beds and aftercare programs, so the decision gets made to hand you a list and send you on your way. Back to the same old same. Like those 4 days is going to fix the years of pain, years of strain, years of sniffing pills to push your poison in your veins. Addiction is like a ball and chain to save whenever it calls your name, weighing you down until it buries you in the grave. And then when you do hit the streets, further treatment is just out of reach. So you keep a dirty urine instead of being clean. Recovery's only seen in the better parts of your dreams, living the nightmare transforming into a fiend. And there's not a soul alive that can hear you scream. But you know what you need. Even though the sickness got a trick up its sleeve, it starts whispering in your ear till you start to believe that you got a grip. You can handle your disease till they find your buddy dead with an empty IV. Another number, another statistic added to thousands this year. One thing remains clear as I'm burying more and more of my peers, that most people out there, they don't really care until it's one of their loved ones added to the prayers. A Facebook wall flooded with love. Ransom raised by we all hate this drug. I think it's getting a little too overcrowded up above. Heaven needs to start taking my people. The origins of this epidemic is see-through. Pharmaceutical companies gave birth to a generation addicted to the needle. Legal drug dealing doctors influenced by money is pure evil. Flood the streets with painkillers, then you pull them off the market. To make it easy to transition into heroin when the withdrawals hit the hottest. I don't even think we face the worst part of it. I sit here with a heavy soul, broken-hearted, praying for the daily departed and those that are lost will find their light inside of the darkness, coming out clean on the other side. I want to spark a rally and cry that might save a few lives. Every day another angel flies, while an entire community mourns while saying their goodbyes. All I can do is try to prove to you that it's worth staying alive.
Wow. So good.
Yeah.
I can imagine the impact you had in sharing that.
Yeah. No. I
was
fired up saying that out there too.
I bet you were.
Dope hearing all those people cheer for that.
Yes.
So
I'm looking forward to seeing you perform and speak again sometime soon.
No, definitely. Well, you want more? What you got?
I want more, bro. Come on, bring it.
More? All right. This is a piece called "Sign Your One True Love," and it's about that crazy, codependent, toxic, psychotic ex that you love to hate and hate to love, and you can't escape her. Right? That's what this type of piece is. That real toxic relationship. So, I've been that ex, and I have a couple exes that are like that. So, sign your one true love. I miss you so much. Please come back to me. Dying for your touch, but you will need me eventually. It's been a while, but I'm still in your thoughts. Running wild, our love will never stop. The affair you're having, that's easily forgiven. I sit back here laughing while you're trapped in my prison, holding me hostage, begging to breathe again. I'm blessed with the knowledge we share this life to the end. When you were the lowest, I was there to pick you up. Saved you from feeling hopeless when you were down in your luck. Patience is simple to handle because it's only a matter of time. Till everything gets dismantled, your misery and I collide. The years have treated you well. While you still fantasize about how good it could be. We had to go through hell, but I know you were meant to be with me. Walking hand in hand in a forever. In sickness and in health. We will always be together. There's no one you can blame but yourself. Don't you remember the good times we shared? Or the happiness you bring? From someone who truly cared, who used to do anything. Just so I could be inside. Feeling every part of you. There's no reason to hide. Denial is a small obstacle. We're a perfect match. It is our destiny. For you to walk down that path that leads you back to me. This is only a reminder. Leaving you my heart and a note. Our love is still a burning fire. Sign, your one true love. Dope.
Dope. So good. So good.
Yeah.
Everybody loving your words and your poetry. Just amazing.
Yeah, man.
You feel that. I feel that.
Yeah. That's the goal. I write with emotion. I might not have the best vocabulary or not always, the best metaphors. When I first started doing open mics, it was funny. I go to these like college places and they talk about like 15th century bullshit that would go right over my head. And I would step on stage talking about shooting dope and smoking crack. And I would get off stage and they would split from me like it was the Red Sea, like I was there to still steal their purse. So,
like you were Moses of the drug scene.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was, but it's cool because I ended up getting, I built a name in like the poetry scene. It wasn't all just recovery. Like I ended up building a reputation. I hosted an open mic. I won slam events. I featured at the New Eurekan Cafe in New York City, which is like a world famous poetry spot. And I did it in a Red Sox hat and a Red Sox shirt because I had to represent the city I was from in New York City. So probably get some shots from anybody that's listening out there. But I mean, I try to take the city that I'm, the area that I'm from everywhere that I go. So
you got to rep your city, dog.
That's it.
I seen a video. I guess it was a year old recently. Taking some batting practice. Is that Fenway Park?
Fenway Park.
The Green
I got
Monster.
to sit at home plate, right? And out of 30-something people, I ended up hitting the Green Monster.
That's what's
Nobody
up.
else did. And I hadn't swung a bat and hit a baseball since I was probably 17 years old.
Was it your last cut that you hit the wall?
No, I hit it on 2 different times. Short hopped in one of them, but I ended up. It felt good being out there.
Yeah.
But like I'm 33, I'm 34, and my body's completely breaking down. I played basketball for years in men's leagues. I still play flag football, but I'm like on a stretcher every Sunday morning after I play. But like I love competing. Like it's something that I love to do. And like when I got clean, it's like recovery gets drilled into us, right? That the majority of what we need to do has to be focusing on recovery. Well, another aspect that I added in my recovery is just doing the things that I loved to do when I was a kid, that I like went years without doing, that I stopped playing basketball, I stopped playing football, I stopped having a good time. So for me, jumping in a sober league, or even if it's not a sober league, just to get out there and play with friends and compete, healthy competition.
That's
you know what I mean?
fellowship.
I was on this sober team that we won I think we won like 4 basketball championships in a row. But then we got kicked out of the league because we started fighting everybody, and we're in recovery, but doesn't mean we're perfect. So yeah. Haven't been able to regain the magic with basketball either. We used to dominate this league, and I think we got kicked out of like 3 leagues in a row. So
Oh man.
whatever. I still flag football is what I'm left with right now. I can't physically do basketball. But I play flag football in 2 leagues every year, one in the spring, one in the fall. And I love being out there just competing with people and just having fun. Like that's a form of therapy for me. Just like the poetry. When I write, it's like a freedom. When I'm playing, it's a freedom. It's a freedom to just like enjoy that moment.
That's what it's all about. Freedom.
And I get to do those things. If I'm getting high, I ain't going up for a
many
game.
forms of freedom the recovery offers us. Many forms of freedom.
So
happy Easter, my friend.
Yeah, no, happy Easter, brother. It's a beautiful day.
It is. It is, man.
Easter bunny came for my kids, and I get to celebrate 13 years. 13 amazing, up and down, positive, negative, trials, tribulations, loss, gain, success, the full gamut of what you could experience. I've been able to experience in 13 years. I've crossed paths with like some absolutely amazing people, and you never know, like just a few words with somebody, what it can spark. I mean, we sat down in Michigan 3 years ago and stayed in contact the last 3 years,
right.
Going back and forth. You know what I mean? Like you just never know. And that's the beautiful thing about recovery, that connection. We have something in common that we struggle with, that like, I don't know you, you don't know me. Somehow, some way our recovery paths put us in Michigan of all fucking places.
That's right.
At the same time. And here we are, we just end up talking and continue to build off of that was 3 years ago. And now how often does that happen? Especially like I know you travel a lot. So like the amount of lives you can impact, just sharing your story, having a conversation, even listen, like
just
listening to somebody, you know what I mean, with what they're going through. Like it's not always about giving somebody advice. Sometimes somebody just needs to hear you,
That's right. They need to be heard, you know. That you just implement that strategic kind word at the right moment can mean everything.
Everything. Yeah,
you're an inspiration to me. You're an inspiration to a lot of people out there.
Yeah.
Please keep doing what you're doing.
Hey, well, thank you for having me on, man. It's been an honor. I'm extremely blessed and grateful, and I hope anybody that was listening, they get something out of it. Whether it was the poetry, if anybody's interested in my poetry, you can look me up on YouTube, or you can check out my writer's page, Matt Ganem, the poet. I constantly post some things on there. Try to share whenever I have events. It's a little harder now that I got my little man with me at all times. He's my little rider. But I still try to get whatever I can get out there. I try to get it out there. So I'm extremely blessed. I'm beyond grateful, like, to sit here with 13 years clean and with the life that I've been able to build from the ashes, the absolute ashes, the pits of hell that I had to claw out of to be where
bottom of the bottom of the bottom.
Like I'm blessed, man. Like any struggles I deal with, it's just like, man, like it's a first world problem to deal with this kind of stress, because this is far better than what it could be. You know what I mean? So
for a man that wasn't supposed to have a minute clean and sober, look at you.
I know. Who would have thought?
All right, guys. Can you see the banner that I got going across the screen there?
I can't see it across the
screen. Okay, you can.
I have it up.
Well, I got a little banner that's been going for a while now. It says, "Congratulations on 13 years of sobriety." You can watch it and critique it. Tell me how we did. I think we did fantastic. Thank you, my friend.
No. Love you, brother.
Love you too, my brother. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate you, brother. I'll talk to you soon, all right?
All right, we'll talk, man.
Good night, buddy.
Everybody.
Peace out. And